There's a part of Red Dead 2 that most players never explore, and the curious thing is it's always been there, hidden behind just one character, John Marston. After the main story ends, the game doesn't stop. In fact, it starts showing things Arthur could never see, secrets hidden inside the world itself, details that evolve over time, stories that only get their ending years later. And the more you explore the epilogue, the more you realize there are things that don't exist in the first 6 chapters of the game. From map changes that go completely unnoticed to encounters that wrap up major gang stories, and even one of the darkest mysteries in the entire franchise. But there's one in particular that goes way beyond a simple secret, because John can discover the tragic fate of one of the most important characters in the game's universe, a man Dutch van der Linde saw not just as an ally but as a true mentor. And we're starting off with a detail that seems simple but actually shows an insane level of immersion from Rockstar. Between the end of Arthur's story and the start of the epilogue, a full 8 years pass. And in those 8 years, the world didn't stand still, it evolved. Maybe the most impressive change is right in front of us, the buildings. During our journey with Arthur, it's common to see buildings and structures under construction, places that feel frozen in time with almost no progress throughout the 6 chapters. But when we take control of John, everything changes. What felt like an endless construction finally takes shape, and here's a detail a lot of people just don't notice. In the town of Valentine, for example, the second hotel has been completely remodeled. Now it shows off a bright green paint job and becomes another lodging option in town. And this isn't an isolated case. Just a few meters away, right in front of the stable, there was only a structure in its early stages. Back in 1899, all we saw were stakes and almost no progress. But nearly a decade later, everything changes and the building is completely finished. And when you start paying attention to this, you realize the whole game followed that same evolution. In Strawberry, out in Big Valley, it's exactly the same deal. During the campaign with Arthur, we find a cabin still in early construction, just the foundation up. But in the epilogue with John, it's fully finished, rocking that charming architecture that's basically the town's signature look. And if you think this is just limited to small towns, you're wrong. St. Denis, the biggest city in the game, changed too, and maybe the best example of that is the General Quincy T. Harris Memorial. In 1899, Arthur can find a volunteer asking for donations to renovate the place. You can even contribute to the cause. And 8 years later, the work is finally finished. Here's a detail that's just brilliant. If you donated with Arthur and come back here with John, try checking out the donor plaque.
Arthur Morgan. Well, hello, old friend.
Arthur's name will be there, like a permanent mark on the world, even after everything that happened. And that shows a level of continuity that very few games manage to pull off, and these are just a few examples. The entire Red Dead 2 map evolved over time, but only those who play the epilogue with John really notice it. Now tell me, had you ever noticed this before, or did it just fly under your radar? If you dig this kind of detail, go ahead and drop a like and comment down below, because I can make a full video just about these changes. But time doesn't just change the world, it changes people too. And maybe one of the most powerful things about the epilogue is exactly that. Running into people who were part of Arthur's life and finding out what happened to them after everything went down. During our walks around St. Denis, for example, we can find Tilly waiting for the streetcar. And when we talk to her, it's clear her life has completely changed. She married a rich doctor, had her first child, and now lives a quiet, comfortable life in the city. And let's be honest, after everything Tilly went through, this is pretty much a perfect ending, but she wasn't the only one. John can also run into Mary Beth at the Valentine train station, and this is a really nice detail. Remember how she was always reading at the camp? That wasn't just a pastime, it was the beginning of everything. After 1899, she turned that habit into a career and became a successful author. A respected, accomplished woman, totally different from the shy girl we first met. And here comes one of the most interesting reunions, Pearson, the gang's old cook, the guy who was always complaining about everything. He turned into a family man and now runs the Rhodes General Store, which his wife actually owns, and every time you go back there, you uncover a new piece of his life. Stories from the gang, memories from the past, and even details about his marriage. Just one thing, don't even think about robbing him, alright? Because after everything he's been through, doing that would be straight up mean, like Micah Bell level. But not all the encounters are lighthearted. There's one in particular that's pretty heavy. John can find none other than Rainsfall at the Fort Wallace station. And this one is one of the most powerful dialogues in the entire game. His presence is insane. He's the kind of character who doesn't need to raise his voice to leave a mark on you, and the game itself acknowledges that. Because after this conversation, John gets a significant honor boost, like that moment actually carries real weight in the world. And here comes the strongest part of all this. Arthur never saw any of this. He can't see what happened to the people he helped. But when we experience these moments with John, it's like a part of Arthur is still there, completely alive, present in every conversation, in every memory. And maybe that's why these encounters feel so special, because they're not just about John, they're about the legacy. That's why I didn't show the full dialogues here, alright? Just enough to guide you and help you find them, because believe me, this kind of moment you have to live through playing. Throughout the 6 chapters of the game, we went through several camps, from the brutal cold of Coulter to darker places like the Roanoke Ridge area, and in all these spots something happened. Important moments, decisions, losses, scenes that marked the gang's downfall. Now think about it, what if those places didn't just forget all that? Because when you come back to those same camps 8 years later with John, you start to hear things. Fragments of the past, memories, voices, flashbacks of moments that shaped the story echoing through those locations. And this is where a lot of people get freaked out for the first time, because these dialogues don't show up with subtitles, and they come with a weird effect, almost like ghostly voices, like the world itself is reminding you. And the strangest part is exactly that. It's not John remembering, but the environment, like those places are carrying everything that happened there. And once you realize that, the whole vibe changes. It's not just a hidden detail, it's almost like the game is haunting you. Pay close attention to these dialogues.
What a lady you are.
See me now. What's left of me? Never thought I'd say this, but good to see you, Arthur Morgan.
I'm here to tell you, that money in Blackwater, forget about it. It'll come with a noose.
I was worried you'd say that. I treated Jack bad. Abigail, too. I didn't want to believe he was mine.
Where is he? Where's my son? They took him, didn't they? They took my son!
Go. Now. I'll hold him on. It would mean a lot to me. Please.
And if you want to hear those dialogues with John, just go back to the old camps or key locations, but it's important to make clear that it doesn't always happen, so pay close attention. Now we completely step away from the game's traditional narrative and dive into a much darker layer, because there's a Red Dead character who shouldn't even be there, and more than that, a character Arthur never got to meet, but John can. And that changes everything. Among all the figures in this universe, there's only one who appears exclusively to John Marston, and you've probably heard of him, the Strange Man. He has a cabin hidden deep in the Bayou NWL swamps. An isolated, quiet place full of strange details. Everything there seems to have some meaning. I even made a full video just about this cabin, analyzing every detail. And if you want, you can check it out later here on the channel. But there's one specific element inside that's the most intriguing of all, a painting. During the campaign with Arthur, you can watch this painting being slowly created. With each visit it evolves, like something's being built there, but at a certain point it just stops. The painting doesn't progress, it stays frozen, and then you end up forgetting about it and keep playing, until 8 years later you come back there with John. And that's when something really weird happens. The painting is finally complete, like it was finished while you were gone. But that's not even the strangest part, because when you look behind you, he's there, reflected in the mirror watching, and the exact moment you try to look him straight in the eye, he disappears. No sound, no explanation. As if that wasn't enough already, he only shows up again years later in the Red Dead 1 event. Now think about that. A character who crosses games, who appears and disappears and only interacts with John. Who is he, what does he want, and why is he always watching? For over a decade, this was one of the biggest mysteries of the franchise. Until in 2025, Dan Houser finally talked about it in a podcast. And what he said? Well, it completely changes how you see this character. But one thing's for sure, the strange man isn't there by accident. And the more you think about him, the weirder it all gets. So far, everything we've done in Red Dead 2 had one thing in common: easy money, robbery, scams, crime. Throughout the 6 chapters with Arthur, there simply isn't an option to live an honest life. And that makes total sense because we're following the story of outlaws. But in the epilogue, everything changes, because now it's no longer about running away, it's about trying to live the right way. And the coolest part is that this isn't just in the story, it becomes gameplay. John Marston is the only character in the entire game who can actually work to earn money honestly, and a lot of people just ignore that. After the ranch is built, you unlock daily activities, the famous shorts. But here they go way beyond what we did at the camp with Arthur, because now there's actual progression. At first, you carry sacks of corn to the chicken coop, feed the chickens, and over time you start collecting eggs. In the barn, you clean up the space, milk the cows, and little by little you fill up milk jugs. Everything adds up, everything starts to pay off. And when you gather enough, the option pops up to take those supplies over to Blackwater. And here's the curious part: after all that, you get about $8. And at first you think that's a pretty lousy amount. But if we bring that value to today's money, it would be around $280. So maybe it's not so bad after all. And in the end, it's not even about the money, it's about what it represents. Because for the first time in the whole game, you're not robbing, you're not running away, you're building something, and only John can do that. And now we've reached the biggest secret of all, a detail that a lot of people simply never discovered, and that can only be revealed in the epilogue with John. This isn't just an Easter egg, it's a full story, and one of the heaviest in the entire game. Remember Evelyn Miller, Dutch's favorite writer, the one who inspired much of the gang's ideas and helped build that whole twisted vision of freedom? We meet him with Arthur in St. Denis during chapter 4, and after that he just disappears. No explanation, no closure. And this is where John comes in, because years later during the epilogue, he becomes the only character who can find out what really happened to Miller. While roaming around West Elizabeth, John can find him isolated on top of a ridge west of the upper Montana River. He's different now, more introspective, more lost.
Guess we all live with certain ways of coping with what we've done in this life.
I enjoyed our conversation. There's a truth in you, sir, a rare truth. Treasure it. I'm living in a cabin over near Tanner's Reach. Come by sometime, maybe we might talk some more.
Maybe I shall.
Good day.
And during the conversation, he invites John to visit him at his cabin in Taltrees, and this is where the story starts getting weird. Miller has completely given up city life. He's decided to live isolated away from everything, trying to find some kind of answer in nature, but things spiral out of control. In one of their meetings, he takes John to a hunter's camp, and it all ends in a chaotic shootout. After that, he goes back to the cabin, and that's where everything begins to fall apart. Miller makes an extreme decision. He decides to lock himself in and not leave the cabin anymore. No eating, no drinking, no contact with the outside world until he finishes his book.
I'm not eating, drinking liquor, or leaving this cabin until this draft is complete.
Okay?
I feel amazing! Aside from the doubt and self-loathing, but I've seen a great beauty, John.
Okay. You take care of yourself. Get yourself something to eat.
I can't fight my own nature. None of us can.
A full-blown obsession, a blind search for meaning, and that's when we realize something is seriously wrong with Evelyn Miller. In the days that follow, John can come back to the cabin leaving food at the door, trying to help, trying to be a light at the end of the tunnel. But then something changes, a strong off smell, and when John breaks down the door, the truth comes out.
Crazy bastard.
When I'm done, just burn me. I want to soar in the air with the eagles, not rot in the ground with the worms.
Evelyn Miller.
Miller is dead, consumed by his own obsession, and all that's left there is his manuscript. And this is where the story takes its final turn, because when we read what he wrote, we realize Miller wasn't just writing a book, he was trying to understand himself. As we analyze the manuscript Miller left behind, everything starts to make sense. He's caught in a deep conflict with human nature itself. In his writings, he questions how modern man was shaped, someone who's constantly thinking but has lost the ability to truly feel. For Miller, civilization didn't evolve man, it limited him, turning people into individuals trapped in their own minds, unable to experience the world in a pure way. And that's why he says the problem isn't death, but the opposite of it. The illusion of greatness, the idea that we're special, superior, almost godlike. He sees this as humanity's great downfall, a kind of break from something simpler, more real, almost like we've drifted away from a natural state of being. That's why he runs away, isolates himself. He tries to go back to that primitive state, believing he'll find redemption there. But that search destroys him completely, because in the end, he's still the same guy. A man trapped in his own mind, unable to escape his own thoughts. He didn't find the answer, he got lost inside his own mind. Because of all this, and out of respect for his friend's pain, John decides to honor his last wish and sets the cabin on fire, cremate Miller so he can rise through the air like he wanted. This is definitely one of the most impactful side missions you can complete with John, because besides being exclusive to the epilogue, it carries a really strong emotional weight, something that's quite different from the usual missions in the game. But what about you? Did you finish this mission in your Red Dead? I actually took a little while to find it, since unlike most missions, it only shows up on the map when you're close to the area, so you can only discover it by exploring the upper Montana River region. And now that you've learned the 6 secrets that can only be discovered playing as John, let me show you something. There's a way to completely screw up your Red Dead 2 experience, and it happens early in the game without you even realizing it. And trust me, I'm not exaggerating, these are mistakes that mess with your progress, your money, your choices, and even things around you that don't make sense. And the worst part, almost everyone makes these mistakes on their first playthrough, including me, even after more than 1,000 hours of gameplay. But once I figured this out, the game changed completely for me, and that's exactly what I'm gonna show you now. So if you're interested, just click right here next to the yellow arrow for this video, but first a big shout out to all the channel members. We'll catch up again in a few seconds. Big hugs and see you soon. Bye.